The following podcast contains adult content, including adult language. I talk openly about sex and other adult topics. If you are under the age of 18 or are uncomfortable listening to sexually explicit narratives, please listen no further. I am not a professional therapist, counselor, or doctor. I'm just an average guy in the swinger lifestyle who likes to share his experiences. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Please seek a professional if you are in need of guidance or care as it relates to sexual health or alternative lifestyles. Hi everyone, and welcome to Evan Swings. This is a lifestyle podcast from a guy's perspective. My perspective, of course. I'm Evan, your host. I've been in the lifestyle for 4.5 years, along with my amazing wife, Eva. June of 2026 will be the 5-year anniversary of our very first lifestyle experience. So we're coming up on that pretty quickly. We are a Dayton, Ohio area full swap couple. Both of us are in our very late 40s. We both turned 50 this year, to be exact. So I usually just kind of give that little intro. If you are a returning listener to the podcast, thank you as always for joining me and for supporting me. I greatly appreciate it. If you're new to the show and just heard that intro for the first time, thanks for giving me a chance. Remember, I am no expert. I'm just an average guy who likes to share our experiences for the purposes of information and entertainment. If I sound a little differently today, I apologize. A week ago, I was involved in a car accident. I was rear-ended from behind at a red light, and when it happened, I was pissed. I let out a long, loud scream of anger. I just shouted once it happened, and kind of threw off my vocal cords, I think. And then I'm a teacher, an elementary school teacher by day, and this past week I did a lot of talking, and even some yelling. So my voice may seem a little off today, a little raspier than usual. I want to start off today's show by stating that this podcast has finally received a review. If you go on Reddit, there is a swingers subreddit, or whatever it's called, and someone on there enjoys listening to lifestyle podcasts and reviewing them. I am pleased to say that this podcast has reached a point of recognition where someone has taken notice and offered their thoughts in a public forum. Their review was one word: yawn. Yup, that was it. Yawn. Now, granted, this reviewer listened to one of my episodes that I certainly would not classify as one of my best. Definitely not. But I do certainly appreciate the honest feedback. And I will continue to try to make this podcast better and better. But it got me thinking, what is the point of this podcast? What is its purpose? Who am I trying to reach, and for what reason? Why do I even take the time to do it? So let me say this, especially for those who are new or fairly new here. I have listened to a lot of lifestyle podcasts myself, and I have found that they had several things in common, and I wanted to be different. I wanted this podcast to offer something more unique. Most lifestyle podcasts feature two people, usually a man and a woman, but there are others that have two women as hosts. I found only one other lifestyle podcast that is hosted by just a dude. Okay. And there was a point where I thought Evan Swings might be the only one that could boast that. Like the only one that had just a guy as the host. But there's definitely at least one other out there, probably more. But that means there is definitely a very small percentage of lifestyle podcasts like mine. I want to be here giving an honest guy's perspective. We have plenty of couples' perspectives out there. And yes, once in a while, I do bring Eva on the show as a co-host. But for the most part, this is a podcast from a guy's point of view. And I try to be honest. You may agree with me at times with what I say. You may disagree. But know that I'm just trying to share my experiences and my opinions honestly and directly. I got started with this podcast because listening to other lifestyle podcasts helped me. They helped me learn about the lifestyle and they, the ins and outs, the do's and don'ts. And they entertain me. But most of all, they gave me something to relate to. Whether I agreed with what the hosts were saying or not, I could relate our experiences with that of others who may have experienced something similar. So I decided I wanted to do the same. Hopefully there are listeners out there who will relate to what I say. They may or may not learn something, but if not, hopefully they will at least be entertained. And I know, guys, I know that some of my episodes are less exciting than others. But again, that goes back to what I said about being honest. I'm not going to just make stuff up. I'm going to tell you what has really happened to Eva and me in our lifestyle adventures. Therefore, I have no set format. Sometimes it may be an exciting, fun, or even humorous story. And sometimes it may just be commentary on a lifestyle topic. So what do you get when you listen to Evan Swings? You just never know. But as long as I have content to share, that I don't have to make up, I will continue to share it. And I do truly hope you enjoy it. If not, I'm not going to be offended. There are many other lifestyle podcasts out there that may suit you better than mine. Eva and I haven't had many super exciting adventures. It's been in a while at least. So I admit things have been a little tame here at Evan Swings. A little tame for a while. But I'm keeping it real. I'm not going to just make up stories for entertainment. So as they happen, I'll talk about them on this podcast. And one last thing I will state. I do not do this for money. I have had several promoters contact me offering to boost my listenership and bring in sponsors to get paid. I turn them down. I don't need to monetize this podcast. I don't do this for fortune or fame. It is honest work as a labor of love. And if just a handful of people end up enjoying it and coming back for more, so be it. Now, I have to say, if somebody were to come and throw a pile of money at me, I'm not going to turn that down. But for now, this is a labor of love. And with that said, let's get on with today's show. I'm titling this episode, at least in part, Neutral New Year. Today I'd like to share with you the experience Eva and I had on New Year's Eve this year. We had a great time, but it also had its share of disappointments. Hence the name Neutral New Year. Plenty to be happy about, plenty to complain about. Last year about this time, I posted an episode about our New Year's Eve experience at Club Princeton in Columbus, Ohio. Eva and I are not the types to walk up to people we do not know at events and gatherings and introduce ourselves. We're a bit shy in that regard. Therefore, it is very rare for us to go to a club without being sure we'd know someone there. Someone we'd have someone to hang out with and talk to. But last New Year's Eve, we took a chance and went by ourselves. Without the assurance that we'd know someone there. And it was a blast. No expectations at all. And it turned out wonderfully. We ended up meeting two amazing couples, one of which we developed a fantastic friendship with benefits. Now, since then, this friendship has unfortunately fizzled, and you can listen to what happened regarding that in my episode entitled Intimidation Factor. If you want to go back and search for that title, Intimidation Factor. I'm not sure which episode it was, but anyway, the lesson Eva and I learned was that sometimes it's okay to step outside of your comfort zone in the lifestyle and try something new. It may not work out, or it may work out nicely. And that New Year's Eve was just such a good time. So learning from that experience, we decided to do it again. We knew a couple of our friends would be there, but they were not bound to us, obligated in any way to hang out with us. We knew they were on the prowl for some new action. And that was fine by us. That's what they wanted to do, and we respected that. But other than that, we didn't know anyone. That didn't stop me from putting out some feelers, though. I used a strategy that I used once before for the Halloween event at Club Princeton we attended. I reserved a table for 4 people. Yes, there are only 2 of us, Eva and myself, but I still got a table for 4. Tables sell out very fast at these events. They're a fairly hot commodity. Many couples feel the same way Eva and I feel about having a table at a club event. We have come to find it to be a near necessity. I'm not sure how it is at most other clubs, but at Club Princeton, there are not many places where you can just sit. There are seats at the bar, yes, and there are some chairs and couches throughout the club. But on a packed night, a crowded night, it's hard to find a place to just take a load off or to just have a convenient home base to leave some personal belongings or just set down a drink. So that's why we really like to reserve a table. And again, I reserved a table for 4 because there is inevitably always several couples who post on the club website on the social section that they tried to get a table but they were sold out, or they were looking for someone who has openings at their table that they can sit with. So I view this as an opportunity to meet new people. I reserve the 4-person table. Then, a week or so before the event, I post something on the social page that states, "We have 2 open seats at our table if anyone wishes to join us and split the cost." This was the second time I've done this, and both times I got multiple requests. Now, I'm a fair person, though, and so I just give the seats to the first couple that responds. But then there were 3 other couples that expressed interest. So again, this is a strategy that I employed in an attempt to meet some new people. So I contacted the other 3 couples and told them that, it was first come, first serve, and unfortunately somebody beat them to it. However, we know how crowded the club gets at these events. So if you would still like to use our table as a home base, a place to sit down drinks and store some belongings or just take a seat for a while, you are more than welcome. Use our table for that. All three couples seemed very grateful and said that they would love to take us up on that offer. Plus, a few days before that, a couple reached out to us on a different website, SDC, and we chatted a bit, and after discovering we were both going to be at this event, they said they were excited to meet us and would love to come and say hello when they arrived. Table 62 was going to be hopping. At least I thought so. If you're doing the math, that's 5 couples. We were excited, well, when I say we, I mean mostly me. We were excited to have all these leads, like potential couples that we were going to be able to say hi to. Eve and I, admittedly, have not had a great deal of luck meeting new people recently. So this situation had a lot of potential. 5 couples, 5 attractive couples, all seemingly very interested in meeting us or at least taking advantage of, using our table as a home base. And that would, allow us to interact a little bit. Well, I'm going to kind of cut to the chase here. Out of those 5 couples, we met one. It was quite strange, first of all, that only one of the 5 couples showed up at our table at any point during the evening just to say hello. But the strangest part was that it wasn't even the couple who offered to split the cost of the table with us. That couple paid me half of the table reservation using Venmo, and then never showed up. They never even sent a message saying they weren't going to be able to make it. And, could I, offer it to somebody else and so that they can get their money back? They just didn't show up and didn't say anything about it. Paid me, but didn't show up. Very, very strange. The one couple that did show up, we really enjoyed meeting them. So this goes back to the title of today's episode. I was very disappointed that we went 1 for 5 on meeting these couples. I was so excited, even if it didn't lead to anything. Just the idea of chatting with new people with the possibility of making new friends and the possibility of hitting it off with someone, only to have 4 couples not seek us out or not attend. And if they did attend, if they had attended, they just flat out didn't bother to come to our table where they knew we'd be. But man, why would you pay for a table and then not show up to use it? Or at least try to sell it to somebody else and get your money back. I just hope they were okay, because the weather was not the best that evening for driving. Like lots of snow and ice. So that was disappointing. But you know what? The rest of the night wasn't. Eva and I had a blast. Dancing, talking to those friends we already knew, hanging out with that and flirting with that one couple that did show up. They were very nice and a lot of fun. We stayed in touch a bit, and since then, and have mentioned about our hope to get back together sometime. So maybe that'll happen. But they are absolutely frustratingly bad with messaging. So we're not sure if that will ever work out. But let me tell you something that did work out that evening. It's amazing how one simple, stupid conversation starter can change the trajectory of an entire evening and lead to other exciting things. Something like a fedora. Yes, a fedora, a hat. Eva and I were leaving the dance floor, about to head to the bar, and we passed this cute couple. I was wearing a black fedora, as I usually do because I'm utterly obsessed with hats and wear them all the damn time. And Eva is walking right in front of me, and as I pass, this dude tells me, "Hey, nice hat. I'm not sure why there aren't more guys wearing them." And that's when I noticed he was wearing a black fedora as well. He was correct, by the way. I don't even remember seeing anyone else at all that night wearing a fedora. So we stopped and introduced ourselves, chat a little bit, and then, about the fedora and other things. And as I mentioned, Eva and I were on our way to the bar when we stopped to talk. So we kept the conversation pretty short and then politely excused ourselves. Right before we did, Eva mentioned that we had a table and pointed out to where it was and offered that they could come and sit with us and chat more later if they so desired. At this point in the evening, it was obvious that the people who actually purchased the other seats at our table were not going to show up. But I knew Eva was not just being polite. She would not have said what she said unless she was interested. On our way to the bar, or maybe it was at the bar, I can't remember, we talked about the couple we just met. And Eva said that as she passed by him, she thought to herself how cute she found him. So when he stopped me to talk, she was very pleased. Since we both found the couple attractive and they seemed really nice, we figured there was some potential here. But remember, this was an evening filled with both fun and disappointment. Little foreshadowing there. A little later in the evening, the couple came over to talk with us, and we hung out for probably a couple of hours. And I may be exaggerating there, I can't really remember, but it was a while. It was obvious that there was mutual attraction all around. And that's when Eva dropped a disappointment bomb on them. And don't worry, they actually ended up dropping a bigger one on us. This couple obviously thought that they were going to get lucky with us that evening. And I don't blame them. We're at a lifestyle club, a lifestyle event, and we're all getting along really well. Their expectations were justified. And Eva sensed it as well. So I think that's why she decided to just come out and make things very clear. She informed them of our rule, that we don't play with a couple on our first date. Or in this case, a couple we just met at a club event. You could see the disappointment in his eyes, but he was actually hilarious about it. He said that he and his wife would be happy to leave, head downstairs, and then come back up and join us in about 2 hours, and we could consider that our second date. So that was funny, and I think they did leave for a bit at some point just to walk around and get drinks and stuff. But they did end up coming back and hanging out with us more. And because some time had passed, Eva had been drinking, had been kind of loosening up a little bit. She informed me later on that she was very close to breaking her rule and saying, "Fuck it, let's go play with them." But it never got to that point, because we learned something very interesting about this couple. Something that was a deal breaker. When they returned to our table, we continued to talk and enjoy each other's company. And while Eva's rule was still in effect, we began discussing getting together again, like another night outside of the club setting. In other words, things were progressing nicely to the point where it was clear we all wanted to see each other again, and we all hoped it would be a play date. Because things were progressing nicely, the wife of the couple decided to ask about our play rules. We informed them that we really didn't have anything except that condoms were mandatory and there would be no anal unless Eva specifically requested it. Naturally, we asked about their rules. And that's when the biggest disappointment bomb dropped. She said that they did not allow kissing. No kissing. That is a deal breaker for both Eva and myself. Eva jokes that she wished she could have seen the expression on her face when she heard this, because it was like, I think she put it like getting a bucket of cold water dumped on her, just like getting slapped in the face. It was a gut punch after really clicking with this couple. After spending hours with this couple, and then in an instant, we discovered we were not compatible. Just like that. We explained this to them right away, and they honestly seemed to think we were joking at first when we said, that's a deal breaker for us. But we were not. And honestly, we'd heard about couples who had this rule, but in 4.5 years, until that moment, we had never met any. It really put an instant rain cloud above a really fun evening. So now that this was out, this couple understandably wanted to leave us and try to find some other entertainment for that evening. However, we really did hit it off, so we said that we would stay in touch and exchange contact information, and then over the next few days, we ended up having some great conversations. Well, him and I, of course. The no kissing rule was hers, and he said that they enjoyed meeting us so much that they would be, or they might be, willing to bend their rule if we could schedule a date. And I told them we were not comfortable with that. We would never want anyone to bend or break a rule and then end up regretting it later on. That would make us feel terrible. But then he said that while she was starting to come around, he didn't have that rule, and he and Eva could kiss no problem. And while it is normally a deal breaker for me as well, I knew Eva was really interested in this guy, and I thought this woman looked like an actress I find very attractive. It's the one who plays Stevie on the TV show Schitt's Creek, if you've ever seen that. So I was willing to bend my rule. I could definitely have sex with this woman and just avoid kissing her on the lips. Plus, they loved playing euchre, which is something Eva and I enjoy. So we discussed getting together again, even if it meant just playing euchre and having a mostly vanilla evening. And they ended up living just outside the Dayton area, so they were even a fairly close couple. As luck would have it, though, Club Princeton had a great offer. The New Year's Eve party was on Wednesday night. If you were to return to the club on Saturday night, you would get in free of charge if you had attended the New Year's Eve party. And this other couple was going. Well, Eva and I did not have any intentions to go. As I said, we're in our late 40s. We stayed up till 4:30 a.m. on New Year's Eve, which was, just a couple days prior. And something like that, that takes a toll on our bodies because we're certainly not used to doing it. We're not as young as we used to be. We figured we would just be resting and recovering all day Saturday. And that actually sounded delightful to us. At about 5 p.m., though, I was feeling very energetic, and I was thinking about how the rest of our evening was going to go. Just basically doing nothing, sitting on a couch watching TV. So I sat down next to Eva and said, we should have gone back to Princeton tonight. She thought about it for a second, shrugged her shoulders, and said, well, let's go. And ladies and gentlemen, this was the first time, I think, that this has ever happened to us, where on a whim, with very little prep time, we decided to just up and go to a lifestyle event. But that's just what we did. Eva even said something like, I think it would be fun to just show up, fuck them, and come home. The idea was exciting for us because it was stepping out of our comfort zone a little bit. And the theme for the evening at Princeton was white out. So Eva threw on some sexy white lingerie, and I put on a white button down and a white fedora, and we headed out. Now, we only communicated with our new friends through the Princeton site. So I posted a message there to let them know that we had decided we would actually be attending. But they did not view this. They did not view this message until we were at the club. We went to the social media room where cell phone use is allowed, and we read their message. We read their response, and it was a nice ego boost, or whatever you want to call it, to see their excited response, that we were actually going. Well, eventually they showed up, and we hung out for a while, but there was also this unspoken notion that we weren't, committed to hanging out with them the entire time. So Eva and I went out to dance for a while and then went to find them again. Well, we found them on a couch. The dude had his dick out and his wife was giving him a blowjob. Well, Eva had to use the restroom, so we went to the restroom. I usually walk her there. I usually try to be a gentleman and, go with her and wait for her to come out. And when Eva came out, I noticed she had a hair tie ready. And I was like, what's going on here? So I excitedly asked her, oh, are you going to join in? And she said that she planned to. So we went back to the couch, and I got to watch Eva and the dude's wife suck on this guy's dick on the couch, which also drew a little bit of a crowd. Very hot, very exciting. Now that everyone was all riled up, the idea was to let's go play. Oh, and by the way, I did just watch the whole time. Okay, the husband patted the seat next to me and, kind of inviting me to sit and assumingly get a blowjob from his wife. But I didn't want to make assumptions. If she asked me to sit down, then I totally would have. But she didn't. Anyway, we already had the discussion about how I don't really enjoy playing at the club. It is very distracting to me, and my anxiety kicks in. But I said I was willing to try, with a caveat. If I could not perform, there would be no hard feelings, and we would just go back to their hotel. And that was agreed upon wholeheartedly. So it seemed like a win-win situation. If everything worked down below for me, great. If not, there'd be no hard feelings and we would just go back to the hotel. The problem was there were no playrooms available. The event was surprisingly more well attended than we thought it would be. So after waiting a while, the dude just said, fuck it, let's just go back to our hotel. And that's what we did. When we arrived, the wife slipped into some sexy red lingerie, and we got down to business pretty quickly. It went pretty smoothly, except I had to catch myself, stop myself a few times. Because I was inclined by, force of habit to move my mouth up to hers and go in for a kiss. So I had to hold back. So all four of us are on the bed, and she suddenly turns towards Eva and starts kissing her. I thought, oh, she's getting more comfortable. And after a bit longer, I'm on top of her in the missionary position, and she grabs my head and brings my face close to hers for a kiss. But I resisted. And at that moment, I told her, I said, I didn't want her to regret this later. And she had to be sure. I did not mind following her rules. I was having a blast. I was having a great time. So I didn't mind following her rules and not kissing her. But she insisted it was okay. So we began kissing. Very deeply, very passionately. And this may be kind of weird to say, but I think she had like the biggest mouth I've ever kissed. I don't know. Her jaw just seemed to open so wide and like suck me in. It was very nice. I wish I had more interesting things to say, like about the sex that evening, but I really do not. I really do not. It was a fun time, and we do hope to see them again. And all this happened though. This is kind of like the point I want to make here. All this happened because I wore a fedora to the New Year's Eve event. It's just, something so simple. And I think it's so interesting how little things like that could spark something. Had I not been wearing that hat that evening, chances are we would never have even spoken to that couple. And we have actually chatted a bit since that evening. So it doesn't appear there was any regret from her bending that, or should I say breaking, her no kissing rule. So maybe I'll have a euchre and sex story for you some other time. And again, this all worked out, all transpired because of an icebreaker, a conversation starter, wearing a fedora. Yeah. So it's just really interesting how that works out. And I remember how in Mexico, when Eva and I went to Mexico, to Cancun, to Desire Pearl, I mentioned this in a previous episode. We had a conversation starter. Eva saw that the dude was holding a cup that said 50th anniversary. And that's why we were there. We were not 50th, I apologize. 25th. Oh my gosh. 25th anniversary. And that's why we were there. We were celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary. So that gave us an in. That was something that we can, start a conversation about. It gave us an icebreaker to say hello. So it's really interesting how things like this happen, I guess not just in the lifestyle, but just in life in general. When a little something like that, an seemingly insignificant thing like wearing a fedora, would end up triggering or causing a conversation like that to occur. So really neat. For this time, though, I'm about to wrap things up here and get out of here. So thanks for listening today. Remember, you can always reach out to me with your thoughts, comments, questions, and suggestions. You can find me on Blue Sky by going to the Blue Sky app and searching for Evan Swings. Or you can find me on Instagram. My name on Instagram is Evan Dienson, EvanDeanson. Or even Kick at that same name, but I hardly ever check Kick these days. The ads have gotten out of control. Or you can always just use old-fashioned email. You can email me at evandienson@gmail.com. Until next time, take care, everyone. Be safe, be wild, and we only get one, so always remember to live life to the fullest.